Saturday, August 9, 2014, 18-year-old Michael Brown Jr. was shot and killed by Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson. Brown was unarmed, and many say that his arms were raised. That shooting was an alarming fact. We learned that the city of Ferguson used ticketing and jail fees as a revenue generator that choked poor blacks. We also learned that African Americans were over-policed and suffered extreme levels of brutality. Ferguson was a powder keg, and it blew that fateful day. In a minute, Michael Brown Sr. will take us back. He's here to talk about what happened and how he has moved forward.
I always thought, okay, if this doesn't work out, I'll just join the ironworkers. And the only reason why I knew what an ironworker was is when I was taking my welding classes, I had a boyfriend I had dated. His dad was an ironworker, and they lived in a nice part of town. He drove a truck. All the kids had braces, and that was to me the established okay, they got money. So that's what I kind of went off of. I was like, well, if they can take care of their family, I could probably make money doing it. And all I knew was they welded, did something with bridges, and if someone veered off the road and hit one of those metal medians, they fixed them, and that's it. That's all I knew.
Mr. Brown, thank you for joining us today, and we appreciate your time. I guess the first thing I want you to talk about is your son. Who was Mike Brown Jr.?
Well, Mike was funny, always big, jokester. Yeah, he was a big baby, so he's a big guy. He liked girls. He was very good with his hands. He could take things apart, put them back together.
Oh.
He really wanted to go off into college, because he had a skill, So he loved his siblings. Especially his grandmothers. He treated his grandmothers like they were his girlfriends. He really was very protective of them, made sure they had everything that they needed. He just loved. He had a beautiful spirit.
You say he was talking and thinking about going off to college. He had just graduated,
Mm-hmm.
right? What was his goal? This was in the summer, so he would have
Yes.
been about to head off in weeks.
That Saturday he was murdered. That Monday he should have been in Vatterott, taking up HVAC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, as you think about it, you must think back on just what it was that he wanted to do and who he thought he should be.
Mm-hmm.
He was your only son,
Yes.
right? That had to be challenging, though, to
Yeah.
lose your only son.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Um,
That's your namesake.
My namesake, just thinking about if he would have children now, what would he be doing right now? Would he had his own, business? Would he would have finished college? Would he thought of, I tried that. Let me try something different. Children, grandchildren. Would he have a beard like mine? Where would he stay? Where would he live? Would he be vegetarian now? He was in a place where he was transitioning to adulthood. So it's just certain things I just wouldn't know. That I just curious to.
One of the things I remember about that time period was the fact that he had said, and it was prolific, that the world would know his name.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd that come from? How did he say it? What was he talking about?
Well, we went out to eat after graduation. After he graduated, we went to it's a Chinese place in Ferguson. It's right before the train track. I can't remember but it sat there. It's no longer there anymore. It's another establishment there now. But he went to the restroom. He came back. I got up, to pay, and he was like, Daddy, I want to be a rapper. I was like, huh? I'm like, nah, you're going to college, right? So you can use it as a hobby. You're like, I'm telling you, the world gonna know my name. I'm gonna be the biggest rapper. I'm gonna be bigger than Lil Wayne, all of them, right? I'm like, that's a good, okay, but you using that as a hobby. you're going to college, man. And he said, I'm going to have to go away for a while. I'm going to come back and save my city. I'm like, what is he on? I'm just like, what is he talking about? And he prophesied his life. He is bigger than Lil Wayne. He gave me the spirit to come back and try to save the city. So it's a spiritual. It goes deep. I'm like, boy, why did you leave me without,
Yes.
But he knew what he was doing. He said he was gonna take care of his family and all that. I won't have to suffer. It's like I don't know. It was just like, but we didn't want it in this way.
Yeah. No, you did not want it this way.
Didn't want it this way.
What was your thought when you got that news?
I was in a bad space. My wife got a phone call from Leslie's mother. She had called to speak to me. I was in the other room. She answered the phone. And she said, Desiree's on the phone. She want to talk to you. I get on the phone. And she said, police just shot Mike. He's laying in the middle of the street. And I went mute for a second. And I turned to, Cal and her mother, which was in the room with me, and I said, so the police just killed my son? And from that point on, I don't even remember even getting in the car. I could tell you about the ride. The ride was like a roller coaster. I felt like I was in a tunnel. I just really couldn't believe it. And then when we got there to the scene, it was like, okay, they didn't stop making those flip-flops. They didn't stop making those hats, because the hat that he had, we both wore at my wedding, because my son was my best man, So we dressed in Cardinals hat, linen shirt, linen shorts, and Chuck Taylors, right, for the wedding. So just because I seen those things, I didn't realize that it was him, because I didn't see what the world seen on the internet unveiled. When I got there, Mike was covered up. So in my head, I'm like, well, I'm telling myself that's not him. Hotel Army was,
How were you treated by the police and the system, the courts and all after that? I mean.
Well, at that time, we were just talking earlier about my 18-year-old, Michael. She was faced with dogs barking in her face, police attacking, actually charging us with dogs,
When?
Yes.
When was this?
This was that day. That same day. They called it, what they call it, when they trying to scoot the crowd back. They call it, it's a word for it, but they wanted to move the crowd back so they can push the tape back.
Yes.
So they wanted us to be back further. So they used the dogs as a tactic to scare us, to make us move. And my 18-month-year-old was maybe a foot away from a barking dog, looking like it wanted to bite her. Another one I can remember, I went to school with this guy that became a St. Louis County police officer, and I asked him questions. And he disregarded what I was asking. These people were very disrespectful that day, and it was just terrible. Leslie was told to shut the hell up, go somewhere and sit down. Like, these people just talked to us so disrespectful, in a time that all we trying to do is just figure out what is going on.
In the years since all of that, things changed a little in Ferguson in terms of, and across the metropolitan area with respect to that whole policy of ticketing, and things came out.
Yeah.
It became real clear that certain things were happening that may have contributed to the frustration and the anxiety that Black people felt in Ferguson and around the area. What is it that you're doing now? I mean, you've decided that you need to do something to add to some of those changes. How have you responded personally?
Well, I had to turn my pain into purpose. I had to figure out, what did I need to do as far as rebuilding myself, right? A lot of people don't know that I was muted through this. I always was a quiet person, so, when it actually happened, I was told that a woman with tears would bring money, and the world would feel that. people don't want to see an angry black man on national TV. He doesn't bring any comforting to anyone. You know, you're basically scaring people, you know. So I came up with this foundation, you know, part of my foundation, Chosen Fathers. So for these fathers that was going through the same thing I was going through, you know, and I had a national platform, I was able to give them a platform so they can be able to express themselves. And give them the teaching on, you know, and some that were new, you know, to see the things that will be coming, you know, or will be said to them in the future that I have went through. So, yeah, it's called Chosen Father. So it's a group of us that, you know, we bind and heal together, you know, and learn how to get back on track as far as with our new life.
Is it possible to get back on track?
Well,
Or how?
yes, it is. It's a struggle every day, you know. Some days are different than others. You know, like I say with these fathers, we do a group call every morning and say good morning to each other. So what it does is if we have a father that's having a bad day, he can chime in and we have to get right on it right then. So it's no limit or time to grief, you know, for grief. But we do want to be a hand and a shoulder for each other, you know, because we were taught to take it, and go back out in this world. But we know that that's not right. That's not healthy for us. And by that mindset, people don't realize that you're sending ticking time bombs back out into this world that haven't been healed or in the process of trying to get healed. You know, so we have to try to protect ourselves.
You know, it sounds like, and I'm sure it's a growing number, unfortunately.
Yes, it is.
How many, what does that say to you that there continue to be fathers who need this support because their sons or daughters have been killed or succumbed to violence? Now, I don't know if we should say it's all by police violence, but there's a streak of violence that's hit the community extensively. The number is great. Is that right?
Yes.
What do you see? How does that?
I just feel that in this time, you know, and where I'm set up, you know, with this mission that I'm on, that I just go forward and just trying to help. That's all I have. That's all I have is to try. You know, it's a lot of fathers that don't even want this help. And I understand, you know, they don't want to be exposed. They don't want to think about it. They just want to go back to work and figure it out, you know. So I just still have my door open for them. And I hope that some more families or fathers will reach out and try to get this help, or reach out to someone in their city or their community to try to get some help after losing or going through some tragic like that, you know.
Do you think that the system failed you?
Yes.
Explain that.
I would say as far as the way legislation is rolled up, things can be changed. We have a prosecutor now that can actually, I wouldn't say do what he wants, but he can turn some corners. And a promise was made and it didn't happen. And what I would say is that I think that people need to go ahead and look through this fine print of what applies to us as for us as being colored people, and broaden it, and make it work for what it needs to work for. I'm not saying we all are, you know, innocent, but in certain cases, do your job. Do your job.
You think that there should have been a prosecution? Now that it hasn't happened, do you want to push for others in the future so that they get that?
Yes.
They get that support.
Yes. And that's definitely what I do. You know, with a lot of these fathers and families, a lot of their court cases are coming up, so I go and support them and be there for them. And, you know, some of the tools that I know now, I just translate them to them, you know, for things that they need to look out for and what they need to, what is the biggest ask, you know. So, you know, when these things happen with us, you know, we didn't know anything, you know. We were pulled every direction. It was pandemonium. When I go back and think about it and look at it, it was just like, we never really had a chance to grieve.
I can imagine. I mean, the national networks were at your door, the organizations were at your door, the legal system was at your door, all of that.
Yeah, and people thought that we needed to travel. These people want you, you got to go. These people want you, you got to go. We got to be on every station to make this, and I get it, it's just that we wasn't in the space to really grab hold on what is really going on. Because we didn't have a chance to really sit down and collect and see, you know, and understand. You know, it was just go, 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 go. You gotta go, you gotta go, you gotta go, you gotta go. So.
But now you're able to focus.
Oh yeah, I'm very clear.
You're very clear?
I'm very clear.
Okay, that sounds good.
Oh, it's a good thing.
That sounds really
Definitely,
good.
Definitely.
Well, I'm happy to hear you say that and know that you are working on providing and making something better for others and for yourself and for your family.
Yes.
We thank you for making yourself available to talk to us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mike Brown, Sr., for being here and for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you for having me.
When I come back, Cal Brown will tell us about Chosen for Change. Back in a minute. Joining me now is Cal Brown. She is the wife of Michael Brown Sr., and she's here to talk to us about Chosen for Change, the organization that Mike founded. Can you talk to us a little bit about what the purpose is and what you're hoping to do?
We are the Michael Brown Sr. Chosen for Change organization. We provide care and support to fathers and families who are processing the unthinkable. We give them the tools to cope, heal, and reinvent themselves after losing a child.
How do you do that? I mean, that has to be something that is a major undertaking. You know, first you've got to grieve. How can you talk about rebuilding yourself and your family?
Well, rebuilding and reinventing yourself is essential. When people lose their child, they lose a part of their self. So like my husband explains it, that he's 9.5 years old. He had to learn to talk, walk, you know, go back out in society. It's not an easy thing to do. Majority of the people who lose their children, they're pushed back out in the community without even being given the tools to heal. You got to cope with your child's death. That could take 5 to 10 years. And once you cope, you got to learn to heal. Healing could take another 10 to 20 years. But you most definitely have to become okay with the person that you've become, because you'll never be the same.
Do people struggle with being okay with that, who they are now?
Yes. Majority of them want to be who they were before. They struggle with their new identity.
And that identity, I suppose, means being responsible to a broader circle of people and organizations. Would you agree?
I would agree. I definitely would agree.
What do you find most challenging about that transition for these parents and fathers?
The coping aspect, learning to live everyday life without their child. That's one of the hardest things for them, to grasp the concept that I'll never see them anymore. I'll never hear their voice. I don't know what they would look like 10 years from now. That is one of their biggest struggles. And it makes it that much harder when their grandchildren behind, but then it makes it that much harder when you have like my husband, who that was his firstborn and only son.
Thinking back on that day, what was it like for you? I guess he tells us you brought the news to him. You got the call, or you answered the phone.
His Mike affectionately called her his gun. She called us as we were sitting there folding laundry and watching TV, and she said, "Hey, is this Mike's wife?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Is Big Mike around?" I said, "Sure." And I handed Mike the phone, and there was a few seconds of silence, and you could see his entire demeanor change. And then he got off the phone and he said, "So the police killed my son?" And I was sitting there actually braiding one of my daughter's hair at the time, and she jumped up and ran to tell the other children. And it was pretty much pandemonium in that 3 to 5 minute span, and we all sprung into action. Myself, Mike, and my mom immediately were on our way to Canfield, and my mother was driving so fast and reckless. And I said to her, I said, "If he's already dead, we at least got to get there safely."
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of the defining moment for Mike. You know, he's a strong, stout man. You seen his shoulders shrink. Even though he heard it on the phone, for me to repeat it, it was kind of reality for him that there's a great possibility my son is here no longer. We approached Canfield, and people were everywhere, and the police told us that we couldn't enter Canfield. And I told the officer that this is his father, and we were able, to get way to go up Canfield Drive, where we met Leslie about halfway through, and she was crying. And she said, "Mike, is
Leslie's
this true?"
Mike's mother.
Mike's mother. She said, "Is this true?" And Mike Sr. said, "I only know what you know." We all turned the corner, and we saw a bloody sheet in the streets with Mike Jr.'s hat from our wedding, his socks. So although we were still in denial, there was things that let us know that it was him, but it was really hard to believe. It was the longest 4.5 hours of our life.
You were a set of parents who witnessed this and had to struggle with it. How frequently is this happening in our community? I mean, do we see
Daily, hourly. It's happened all over the world. And that's one of the hurtful things, is the way that people stood up for Mike Brown Jr. You would think it would be no more, but it seems like it happens much more because there's no real accountability. Everybody talk about justice. What really is justice? I feel that justice can only be served if you're here to receive it. So what we're asking for is accountability, and that's just not happening. Even when it's on tape, it's still not happening.
Mm-hmm. Where do you see the system? Is there anything else you can do through the system in terms of Mike's case? It's over now.
Well, there's no statute of limitation on murder, but until we get somebody who is in office and who is courageous enough to reopen his case and do their due diligence, we kind of stuck.
But other fathers and families, they probably have a better chance, maybe?
Some of the people we have come in contact with, they have had a better chance. Mike's death set the tone for other people to be able to walk in a courtroom and get a trial, something that Mike and Leslie did not get.
How does that make you feel?
It's disheartening. It's very disheartening, because I think they at least deserve that. Mm-hmm. If nothing else, they deserved to hear the evidence, to see the evidence, to hear the truth, and not what people wanted to make the truth.
What did they say? What do they make it? What is inappropriate about the description of that incident that you see needs to be brought to light?
I guess it's more so the black and white thing for me. People talk about that so much. He was white, he was black. They were two human beings, and one of them made a horrible decision that day, and he hasn't been held accountable for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly, since Michael Brown, I think we saw international attention focused on this kind of treatment of young men, but it doesn't seem to have stopped.
No. We've done a lot over these last 10 years, but we haven't done enough. There's so much more that needs to be done. And the first task for that to begin is for us all to put our differences aside and come together.
Elaborate on that. How do you do that? You know, it seems that things are getting more and more polarized, and people are more entrenched in their beliefs and their personal position. But what we do need is to push some of that aside. How are we going to get there?
I don't know. For almost the last 10 years, I've been really trying to figure it out. There are so many people who are willing to stand up and not be defeated by the system or be afraid. But then there's those others that want to turn their cheek and try to find what we've done wrong for that situation to happen. You hear that so much. Well, what did they do? That's the first thing people say. Who's to say that they did anything? Or anything worth losing their life? Let's say that.
I understand.
Do you think selling cigarettes is a reason to lose your life? Do you think walking in the middle of the street is a reason to lose your life? Do you think playing with a toy gun in a park with other children is a reason to lose your life?
And you're speaking about incidents that have happened in other parts of the country
Yeah.
to other individuals. Well, certainly Chosen for Change is attempting to turn all of that around.
Yes.
And what are you needing now? What do you need from the public?
Most definitely their support. Everything that we do, it costs money. But all of our services to the families that we support are free. So it's really important to support. Go to chosenforchange.org, see the work that we do, become a volunteer, become a change agent, show up in the spaces that are needed to support grieving families, because they're our most vulnerable people in the community.
What are you doing for them? Is it like providing food, support,
We
Christmas?
So we provide grief support. We have a monthly grief support called Cookies and Convo, where we create a space that's inclusive to a grieving parent's healing. We recently opened that up to fathers as well, because when we started, it was just for mothers, but we seen the need for them to grieve together. In order to create a child, you need a mother and a father. So if they create it together, they need to learn to grieve together and support one another through that grief. So we offer it to anyone who has lost a child. It doesn't really matter how, whether it's suicide, a normal, act. We try to support them as many ways as we can. We have a group called Mothers of an Angel, St. Louis, where we have a little bit over 300 mothers in the network, where we provide support to them as well. We do a yearly brunch called Mothers of an Angel Brunch. Nobody knows it, but there is a Mother's Day for grieving mothers, the Sunday prior to Mother's Day.
Oh, that's good.
And it's called Bereaved Mother's Day. This year it will be on May the 5th. And we will take about 30 women to the Shaw Nature Reserve that is sponsored by the Botanical Gardens, and they're going to go on a healing retreat.
So you have developed support network with organizations and agencies throughout the area to help you provide this.
To help us, yes.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And nothing does better than, in terms of healing, than just to be in touch with nature.
With nature. Because people use so many different things to try to deal with their grief, and they don't realize that God has provided it all to us. You could just walk outside and take a deep breath and embrace the atmosphere, smell a flower, watch bees huddle over honey. Like, there's so many different things that we can naturally do that don't cost us a dime. So where grief meets nature.
I love it. I love it. Well, Cal, this has been very informative, and certainly we appreciate what you're doing and what you've been through and what you continue to do. Chosen for Change is definitely necessary in our community.
It is.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being a part of it.
Thank you.